Hi, I'm Lydia.
And I'm Helena, and welcome to another Coronavirus and MS podcast.
Yeah, we have another one in this impromptu series, and as you probably know by now, we are recording these on our phones, so the quality can be a bit iffy in places, so please do bear with us.
But it is the content that's the most important part. And speaking of which, let's get this started. How have you been this week, Lydia?
Yeah, not too bad, really. Trying to adapt to the new normal. I think I'm trying to avoid the news as much as I can and just getting outside in the garden where possible. The sunshine, I think, has definitely kept me smiling.
Yeah, the sun has been good.
And how have you been?
I've been fine. I've struggled a bit with the news. And I felt a bit sad that people on the news and social media keeps on talking about people with underlying conditions, almost in a way to try and calm people down.
And how do you mean by that?
Oh, yeah, that wasn't put in the best way, was it? Well, I mean that they report about people being hospitalized or even dying, but that they had an underlying condition, almost in a way as like calming measures for the general public. But for us out there who's living with underlying conditions, and I mean, this isn't just MS, it's so many people that have underlying conditions, asthma or whatever. And it's not very calming at all for us. So I just wish that people would maybe think a little before they say it. I've even had people say it to me, sort of, because they forget that I have MS. But that aside, I'm okay. We managed to get some food orders and I've been baking lots. So I find that that's nice for my mental health.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the underlying conditions. I think people kind of say it in a way that they hope it would make you feel calmer. But actually, I think sometimes it can have the opposite effect for sure.
Yeah, and I think it scares a lot of people as well, because it's kind of reminding them that they are more vulnerable. And yeah.
And I think as we see from the news, it really does, coronavirus can affect anybody. So I think the best thing to do is for us all to just follow the guidance that's in place and do the social distancing. And I know it's probably going to be really boring for some people, but, it's for the best.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people sort of asking about, are they vulnerable? Are they this? Are they that? And I think, if we all just keep to the rules and hunker down and get on with this, then it's going to be the best for all of us, whether we're, got an underlying condition or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And at least the weather's been nice. The sun's been shining, so that's been good.
Yeah, that's been lovely. I've been going for my daily exercise, walks or runs. But now there's talks about stopping that too, which has been annoying.
Yeah, I know. I saw that on the news. And I have to say I have been really enjoying my daily run. But I think some people have been abusing it. I know when I've been out and about, I've certainly seen big groups of runners together in the park and which is not good at all. And it's a real shame.
Yeah, no, it's really annoying. So I hope it's not going to be changed. But, by the time this comes out, it might have changed. We don't know because things change so much. But, and it's really hard, if it is going to change, if you don't have a garden to get into or it's going to be very frustrating for those people who live in, flats or that kind of accommodation.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's lots of good home workouts that you can do online. I know on the MS Trust website, we've got lots on there. We've got some exercises, Pilates exercises from neuro physiotherapist, and anyone with MS can do them at home. So they're really good. And there's also some exercise with Mr. Motivator, no less. Yeah, I'm sure he's still got his Lycra on.
Yeah, he's made his way back to TV, hasn't he? I think he's been.
He has, yeah. He's had a bit of a renaissance, hasn't he, recently?
Absolutely. Good on him, because he's brilliant.
Yeah, good on him. Oh, yeah. So all of those exercises you can see on our website. So I'll just get that little plug in there. That's mstrust.org.uk/exercise.
Yeah. Okay, enough of our chit-chat. Let's get talking to some other people. Our first guest on this podcast is neuropsychologist Anita Rose. You chatted with her a few days ago, didn't you, Lydia?
I did, yeah. And Anita was absolutely brilliant. And we spoke a lot about how you can look after your mind in the middle of this coronavirus crisis that's going on. Hi, Anita. Thanks for chatting to us today. There are a lot of people are self-isolating at the moment, which might be putting a huge strain on their mental health. What advice can you give to them?
think what first and foremost, one of the things I'd be saying is look at what you can control and recognise what you can't control. And I think in MS you feel out of control a lot of the time anyway. So sit down and write down a list of things you can control. So you may be able to control how you're feeling, your positive attitude. You can control turning off the news. I'm saying to patients day in and day out, stop following the news. Perhaps look at it once a day and leave it at that. Don't go onto social chat groups where everybody's talking about it. Distance yourself a bit. It just gets more and more overwhelming. You can find things to do at home that are fun. If you've got a family, get out the board games, get out the old Wii with the music dance kit on and get your kids to do disco dancing for you. You can limit your own, you can ensure that your own social distancing is in place, that you are following the guidelines the governments are giving you, and you can be kind to yourself and compassionate. Those things you can control. What you can't control is some of those things, like what other people are going to do and how long it will last, and how others may react to you, and how much toilet rolls in the shops. We can't control those things. So find a way of just letting them go. We've looked at creating mindfulness techniques for people so that they can look at helping them. There's lots of stuff now on the internet, if you can access the internet, on mindfulness and how to use that. Staying connected is really important when you're self-isolating. The wonderful thing now is we've got so many different apps you can use to be in touch with your family, your friends, the neighbour next door. You've got Zoom, you've got Skype, you've got your WhatsApp, your FaceTime, but staying connected, particularly if you live alone, make sure you touch base with somebody the first thing you wake up in the morning. Call somebody up, have a chat. Structure your day. I think when you're stuck in the house like we are now, it can be very easy to stay in your pajamas all day and not do anything. And of course, what we know is if you do that, that affects your mental health even more. If you're suffering with fatigue with MS, that will make that worse. So get up, have your usual shower, bath, get some clothes on. Perhaps schedule a task to do each day, say the laundry one day, and maybe sitting in the garden another day, or doing some hoovering, but actually structuring your week and your day, getting out. We are allowed one exercise trip out. Plan that. Where could that be? Are you able to get out at all? If all you can do is sit in the garden and the weather's nice, sit in the garden. If it's not nice, sit in the garden with an umbrella over you and just enjoy the rain. Don't get cold though. Limit distractions, so if you are having to do some work or you've got lots going on in your own household, try and make sure you have a break. Take yourself away. Put some earphones on. Listen to a piece of music. If you've got children, helping them can be very, very difficult. And that's where helping them have a daily routine will help you. And as I say, just have fun. I've set up a load of emotional wellbeing packs for my staff, but also for my patients. And we've been setting lots of challenges for each other, like who can do an origami giraffe, or, doing a painting of a particular thing, or listening to some music. We've got some of my patients are learning Russian and French and Spanish, but they're doing it in a fun way, and they're doing it as a challenge with each other. So anything, like if you can do some cooking, some baking, just find activities you enjoy doing and just schedule them in. And as I say, if things are getting really tough, then teach yourself some mindfulness, do some relaxation, but reach out. There are organisations out there, Samaritans, if things are really, really tough. Helplines are there available for you. Don't feel that you can't just say to somebody, I'm feeling really upset, really stressed. Phone your GP. Your GP is able to do phone conferences, video conferences, and at the moment they're willing to help people. They're not usually, but they're not saying, well, sorry, that's a mental health issue, we're not interested. They are, and they want to help. So if it gets to that point, get help.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Anita. So much useful information and tips there for people to take away. Really appreciate your time today.
Pleasure.
Take care and stay safe.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, Anita. That was some sound advice there. And I particularly liked what she said about looking at things that you can control and things that you can't. And it's really important to remember that even if we are in a bit of a lockdown at the moment, your GP is still out there if you're struggling. And there are lots of other charities that you can talk to. So do reach out and talk to people.
Definitely. You're not alone. I think that's really important to remember, even though it can feel like a really lonely place at times. There are lots of people who will be going through something similar to you. And there's so much support out there. So next up on the podcast is Will Barrard. Will is a software engineer and a really good friend of the MS Trust. He has done several very funny and informative videos about MS on our YouTube channel, and he's written several blogs on various topics too. In his spare time, Will does stand-ups where he talks about the funny side of MS. Helena and him had a chat about how he is doing in the COVID-19 lockdown.
Next person's voice that you're going to hear is Will. Hi, Will. How are you coping with the current situation?
Euphemistic. The most recent developments, this interesting times. People are, you start seeing those phrases recurring, insert this. I hope you're well in those uncertain times. I'm coping well, but I'm an introvert, so I'm always working from home. I'm pretty much very socially distant as a baseline. So I'm fine. The shopping in London has become a little bit, not more difficult, just a bit long-winded. As to the rest, well, I hope I'll be as cheerful as I am now after a couple of months of that, because it's the long-term side of it that's getting a little bit concerned.
Yeah, I think when they first started talking about it, then 12 weeks sounded a very long time, and now they were saying about it being up till 6 months, and it certainly it seems a bit longer than 12 weeks. What? Because you live in London, so what is it actually like being in a sort of big place like that? I mean, with the shops, have you got shops open?
I go out. Do you go out? I mean, the way I've not taken the tube or gone anywhere, past my immediate neighborhood, but there's a couple of parks within walking distance, and I take advantage of them as much as I can. I'm probably going to do that this afternoon. It's going to be good. And as to the street, I just love it. Because none of this, only the things that matter are open, which, I mean, we don't need that many nail parlors and chippies. And I mean, maybe that's my view. Maybe I'm just a bit of a grumpy, hermit. But I mean, that's suiting me fine. There's much less traffic, so there's much less pollution. It's much quieter. You can hear the birds. It's a whole different vibe, and it's hard not to. Of course, when you're not one of the people who've can't work and can't earn any money and are stuck with their children at home and have to, God forbid, educate their own children. Jesus, the mind recoils in horror. I mean, you're stuck with kids, Helen, aren't you? Psycho, right?
Yeah. I'm having to. Yes, that's right. Yeah, my mum was a teacher, and she always used to sort of bring that home with her. And, there would be phone calls to parents, and they would be sitting and correcting exams on weekends and all these things. And then when I was going to choose subjects to do in university, she just could not understand for her life why I didn't want to be a teacher. And now it's sort of come full circle having to be a teacher. And
I think that there's a lot of, I get the sense that a lot of parents will come out of that with a newfound respect for their children's teachers. And bear in mind, you've only got yours.
Definitely.
They've got 30 of them. the whole long
exactly.
I mean, a lot of people, I think we all kind of finding out the true value of some things and kind of newfound respect for key workers. And it's nice to see this shift in value. And a lot of people are waxing lyrical about, it would be nice if we use that as a way of resetting a bit or habits with regards to consumption and planetary, and well, that's a nice thought, but there's also the economy to think about. I mean, these are very difficult times, and I think that, I'm just about coping. Let me just whip out an email. You can stay there. That I've got from shift.ms, a social network to which I have signed up. Yes, up to which I have signed, and then never logged back and have a look. And I've been meaning, it's been on my to-do list. So, anyway, they sent an email, which actually is a snippet from a forum post by a user, Claire80. And that's posted on the 16th of March, 2020. And it's titled, "We Got This." It struck me this weekend that people with MS are actually probably particularly well equipped to deal with the coronavirus outbreak. Compared to the rest of the population, we are all used to, and then it's a list. First, being stuck in limbo. Nobody can ever tell us how long something will last and if it will be permanent, temporary, relapsing, remitting, or progressive. I've heard on a podcast, actually, that they might be thinking of alternating, of sort of doing a relapse-remitting model to try and manage both, the health of the nation and the economy, and bits of lockdown and bits of it being lifted in alternating weeks. That's the thing, but let's go back to the list. Second point is living with uncertainty. We all know only too well that nobody can predict what the future holds for us, and that we have to plan as best we can, but always live in the present. Listening to our bodies and struggling to decide whether our latest symptom is something to be worried about or not. Trying to interpret complicated, evolving, and occasionally conflicting medical advice. Appreciating that there is general guidance, but we are all different individuals and each have to make choices based on our personal circumstances and our own assessments of the risks. Self-isolating / adopting good hygiene practices to avoid infection, usually depending on our choice of DMT and how long ago it was and how we are feeling. Adapting and working around constraints and not always being able to go out and do everything we want when we want. Sharing information and best practices at a local and at a global level, so we often know as much or even more than the quote-unquote experts. No, that's the only one I might sort of, let's trust the experts. On global pandemic, I think we should trust the experts. And as to the,
yes.
Yeah. Acknowledging that bad things outside our control will happen and supporting each other to get through the tough times, belonging to a community that does not rely on regular face-to-face contact, maintaining our sense of humor, building resilience. Coronavirus? Everything is relative. MS warriors, keep calm. I think it's safe to say we've got this one. And as much as I'm not going to, support everything in there, the spirit of it, as I mentioned in this video, is very much that. I think once you've gone through an MS diagnosis and the way you have to rethink your values and your life, you've already gone through this in a way, right? You feel like this uncertainty about the future, take it a day at a time. This is all out of the playbook. And it's not just our playbook. Anyone living with a chronic serious health condition or, has to, or having going through some big, rapid changes like we are. So as above, so below in a way. I think, and yeah, right. We are I think we are at an advantage in terms of coping compared to the muggles.
I think you're right. And it's funny because I think I've seen it on social media, a few posts by friends with MS sort of saying, if I can help anyone out with ideas and just the chat, I'm an expert at this. And people that are working from home, not necessarily people with MS, but introverts or, people that have just been home working for a long time, they're sort of giving out tips on how to do things. And it's been quite interesting to see the sort of
how it
has
so nice.
shifted.
I mean, there's nothing I love more than lecturing people. So of course I'm right at home. I've been meaning to do a French version of my, how to stay sane at home or whatever it's titled, self-isolation tips for my family and friends, because it says suddenly you see all those, there's some people like are they're not as experienced in dealing with those matters. Let's face it. And they could, the shoes on the other hand or what have you.
And Will has written a blog, which is up on our website, or will be very soon, which also comes with a video on some ideas on what to do when you are self-isolating, which I thought was very useful. Have you got any parting top tips for someone who is struggling with self-isolation?
It's the basics. Look after your body. I mean, that's true at every, regardless of where. I'm going to make some points that are very broad, but are particularly salient for self-isolation. It's about looking after your body. It's about looking after your mind. It's about structuring your space, because you're going to be stuck at home and working from home, and structuring your time, because in times of crisis, we as animals find routine extremely helpful because it frees up some decision capacity in us. And so, mind, body, time, and space. Those are the very general principle, particularly if you're stuck in self-isolation, particularly with your family and if you're working from home and so on. So I expound on those in a video that in its initial cut, the one that's on my channel, is 18 minutes, that I hope, Helena, you'll be able to extract just what I said, which is just one sentence effectively from it. But so if people want to hear more about it, they can watch it. But it's very practical advice. Go back to basic. Don't overthink it, but look after number one, because if you contract the virus, then things are going to get worse. But also if you start getting cabin fever because you're locked inside and have not, thought about looking after your mental health, then that makes you stressed, which lowers your immune system, makes you more likely to catch the virus, and so on. So those things do matter. So it's sort of like, think of all the self-care stuff you do day to day, and then remind yourself that you're probably not doing enough to start with, and then do more of those, because it's a time where you need to take care of yourself.
Yes. And we've mentioned that you do stand-up comedy. Do you think humor helps in a situation like this?
I think I'm hard pressed to think of a situation in which humor doesn't help. Certainly the person resorting to it, I don't know if surrounding. There are circumstances in which the unwitting audience might take a different view. But and I think that's the broader point, very much like once you get MS, you learn to keep and improve your sense of humor. I think at that time we have to see the light side of things. And it's also tempting to stray towards the darker side of humor. I mean, as a experienced practitioner of gallows humor as a coping mechanism, I know that. But then once you start, I think, knowing, that's not the case for me yet, but once someone quite closely has died from COVID-19, then you might take a different view. So, and because people are all in different stages, I think the problem, the great French humorist Pierre Desproges, which I'm actually quoting in that video, if you want to cut it out, said that you can and you should laugh at everything, including and especially death, but you cannot necessarily laugh with everyone in the same way. So know your audience before you crack a super dark one. Yeah.
Bad taste joke. I agree with you on that one. And I do think actually that's one thing we've spoken in some of these interviews about people saying stay away from social media apart from interacting with people, but actually social media can be a bit too overwhelming with news and all these things. But I have to say that there is some fantastic, creative, funny people out there that have done some very funny things relating to COVID-19, which definitely
Oh yes,
helps
this is the
thing.
Like we're going to see much more. I guess they call it content creation. Everyone's starting a podcast and YouTube videos and so on. I would point out that you don't have to be on social media to consume those things. Just that's a way of becoming aware of them, for sure. But YouTube is equally good. I think it's not so much social media as wherever contains news or worrying information in general, because as much as you can keep up the pretense of wanting to keep informed, you have to be in serious denial about your mental health to think that constantly exposing yourself to something that reminds you you're in mortal danger is not going to make you anxious. But a lot of people they decide to take that stance, and that's fine, you know.
Well, yes, it's each to their own.
Self-isolation from news media is, you see the way in which it's addictive. I mean, every now and then I fall off the wagon and treat myself to the first 10 minutes of the Today program on Radio 4 with all the sort of, you know, guilty, naughty pleasure of a notionally ex-smoker burning a quick one by the fire exit. I mean, it's that level of, like, I know it's bad for me. And I know if I get started, I'm not going to be able to stop, but just a bit, just the front page of the Guardian website, you know, it's this kind of stuff. But like, it goes to show that, you know, clearly it's the attention economy, right? Like, people somewhere have financial interest in you paying attention or having your eyeballs or your eardrums onto that page or that video. And you got to ask yourself whether you're actually looking at that stuff for your own volition or whether you might be playing, you know, the part of just a cog and a pawn in someone else's game.
Yes. I think that's it. You get sort of suckered into these things, and then you can sit and spend like ages being outraged about something, and then you think, hang on, I could have done something better, like, I don't know, declutter my wardrobe. I find being from Sweden that when I listen to Swedish news, because their approach to things have been quite different, I just get angry and think, why are you still out? Why are the things open? So I had to shut.
I think once you've got the information about like what you need to do to stay safe, I mean, try it. Like, it's really worth. It's like sort of, you know, what if you did like a week without sugar type thing? This kind of thing when people realize they shouldn't eat as much wheat or whatever. Just try it, like phase it out of your intellectual diet for a while. And like particularly sort of 24-hour type news is hell. And of course, like depending on who you follow, social media can be your friend or whatever the term is, can be very much like that.
That's some good advice there, I think. I think that was all the questions I had. Unless there's something else you would like to say about the whole. I'm just going to say the whole situation again.
That's just going to make your edits more completely down the line. So do push my YouTube channel forward. The latest post is a call to question, and there's like a call to question video. I'm collating questions and any of the comments of that video, and I hope to do a how to improvise stand-up routine with the material people have given me. So it's sort of it's a cool way of involving everyone, because we're all at home. Let's do something kind of cool and creative together and do whatever we can, you know, stand-up comedy in the times of social isolation, which I am relishing because, quite frankly, having the audience in the room is a distraction as far as I'm concerned. And you have to go to the gig and it's at night. It's just, you know, it doesn't scan very well. I'm loving this.
It really cheered me up chatting to Will. Please go and have a look at his YouTube channel. Just search for Will Berard and you'll find him. Or head over to the MS Trust YouTube channel and look for his series Will Talks, where you should find his Corona special too.
You know what you just said there about chatting cheered you up. I think having had our little catch-ups on Video Messenger and doing this podcast has really cheered me up too.
Thank you. And me. I think talking to people and staying in touch is really the key to getting through this whole lockdown. And speaking of which, do come and talk to us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And, you know, all our information that we put out there is evidence-based and researched. So, you know, you can trust the information that you find here. But also, you know, if you have a question, do get in touch and, you know, post things in our Facebook group or on our post. We want to hear from you.
Definitely. And you can also get in touch with our inquiry service team. You can email them, ask@mstrust.org.uk. They are full of knowledge. And I'm sure they'll do their best to answer any questions you might have, whether it's about the coronavirus or anything else related to your MS. So do get in touch with them. Now, I'm going to get the old Wii Fit out that Anita said about and do some dancing.
That sounds like a good idea. Maybe I'll call you on Skype at the same time so I can have a little look.
Yeah, a little look and a little laugh, I'm sure.
Thank you so much to Will and Anita for chatting to us.
Thanks, everybody. Take care and stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.